Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm here to read a comic, and today's comic is Captain Marvel, issue number 26, dated May 1973. I had a great time reading this comic book, but I kind of knew that going into it because I had read this saga before, and this is really one of the kind of like great moments in comic book history in terms of just sheer creativity. I'll let you know a little bit about what I know of the creation of this saga by Jim Starlin. Basically, from what I understand, that when Jim Starlin was a young artist working with Marvel, he was actually having a hard time dealing with Stan Lee and John Romita because apparently neither one of them particularly cared for his work. Starlin had done a couple issues of Iron Man, which Stan Lee saw, and he absolutely hated them. And he demanded that the artist be removed from the title. And then I think he was given an assignment to do a couple of Spider-Mans. And John Romita, who was the art director at Marvel at the time, he hated what Starlin turned in. And I think what happened was that Romita ended up redrawing almost the entire thing. And because of those two specific incidences, Jim Starlin became very disillusioned with working with Marvel. And what happened is that it was Roy Thomas who saved him. Roy Thomas saw what these two, middle-aged cranks were doing to someone that he recognized as a great talent. And what Thomas did was he assigned Jim Starlin to the Captain Marvel title. And the reason he did that was that he knew that Stan Lee and John Romita did not particularly care for the lower selling titles. And at this time, Captain Marvel was actually slated to be canceled. And because of this, Roy Thomas knew that Starlin can basically do what he wanted with this title because in the end it wasn't going to matter. And he knew that he would be free from any outside interference from Stan Lee or John Romita because, again, it was a low-selling title. They didn't really spend much time with them. They were really kind of concerned with the big-selling titles and making sure that, everything was right there. So Jim Starlin took the assignment. He came up with this saga, and he basically wanted to explore how a soldier of war can become, say, a soldier of peace. He wanted to kind of document a transformation of Captain Marvel going from a soldier to going to a peacekeeper. So that was like the overarching theme of what he wanted to do. And in it, he saved this title because not only was this title taken off the cancellation list, it actually ran 6 more years. So that kind of gives you an idea of how a creator can turn a comic book around. The same thing happened with Daredevil and Frank Miller. It was really Frank Miller who transformed that comic, which is kind of a second-tier comic, into like one of the great titles of all time. So anyway, take a look at the cover. It's a pretty good cover, I think. There's some problems with the anatomy. Even the Thing's anatomy isn't right, but the layouts are really nice. You see Thanos from his like evil villain balcony. And there's some word balloons here indicating that there was a big fight coming up. And it is a rousing fight. This is one of the all-time great two heroes have a misunderstanding and they duke it out. Because there is a lot of drama. There are a lot of thrills in this. So I'm going to start looking at this issue. And it's called Betrayal. And you see the creative team. The creative team was scripted by Mike Friedrichs. I think the arrangement is that Starlin would plot and he would dictate the general course of where the comic was going, and I think Friedrichs was given the job of providing the dialogue and the narrative because he was experienced in doing that where Starlin wasn't. I think eventually, toward the end, Starlin took over the complete reins. Plot and art by Jim Starlin. He does a very good job here. This is a very conventional job from Jim Starlin. He was a big admirer of Steve Ditko. And later on in his career, he developed a style that was closer to what Ditko was doing. But his aesthetic at this point was pretty contemporary. In fact, the art that he does is not much different from the inker, who is Dave Cockrum. So this easily could have been a Dave Cockrum comic. I think Cockrum probably handles the action layouts a little differently, though. And it was edited by Roy Thomas. Yeah, Thomas was he was protecting his employee, so he was being a good boss. So anyway, what was going on in the previous issue, which is the start of the saga, and it's something that's recapped later, so I can go to the second page. We see Captain Marvel. He breaks into the apartment of an attractive young woman here. She's stylishly dressed. This is definitely what someone in 1973 would have been wearing. Brunette, very pretty girl. Kind of looks a little like Susan Atkins from one of the Manson chicks. So anyway, Captain Marvel's furious based on the events that happened in the last issue. Go into it. Excuse me. We see the young woman. Her name is Luann. She was involved with Rick Jones. And Rick Jones is very agitated with this young woman. Rick Jones is currently in the negative zone. So at this time, Marvel and Rick Jones were kind of sharing space on Earth. When one was on Earth, the other was in the negative zone. I forgot the exact origins of this type of symbiotic relationship. But nevertheless, we see that Rick's very angry. He wants I don't know what type of relationship. He wants his symbiotic other to basically beat up on this woman. So Rick is kind of an abuser, but he's kind of a wimpy abuser where he wants someone else to do the beating. Luann, she's standing there pretty defiantly. So this costumed man, breaking down her door and just, kind of lording on her isn't bothering her too much. Marvel and Jones are having a strange one-way conversation if you were to watch it, because the two are telepathically linked. But no one else can hear what's going on in their heads. So if one of them is talking out loud, then it kind of seems a little strange to any onlooker. And we see a recap of what had happened in the last issue. Luann's father was murdered, and he was taken in by the police. Rick Jones was accused of this murder. He was taken in by the police. There was much to do in that police station because Captain Marvel was constantly being attacked by former foes. And I think it was kind of I think the first issue they sort of treated it as a fill-in, because by kind of reminiscing about Captain Marvel's previous foes, they had an excuse to put the Hulk on the cover. They had an excuse to put Namor on the cover, and a few other of Captain Marvel's enemies. So anyway, it turns out that they figured out that this was a ruse, and somehow the Skrulls were involved. They were the ones doing the shifting of characters. It looks like Luann was a part of the plot, because when the police questioned her and told her about her father's death, she pinned it on Rick Jones. So that's why Rick is so angry with this young woman. And we could see that they got out of this, but they still want answers to what's going on. So in some ways, this is really the start of the saga, this issue. It turns out that Luann is somewhat troubled. Captain Marvel doesn't want to beat up on her, which is bothering Rick. But luckily, he's in the negative zone. He can take his toxic feelings elsewhere. Luann figures out that Captain Marvel is communicating with Rick, and she's going to fess up to what she knows. And it turns out that the story she has to tell actually starts in space. And it turns out it's on one of the moons of Saturn called Titan. I don't know the mythology of this, but basically on Titan's moon there is a planet of these kind of out-of-date Earth gods who decided to leave Earth, and they're kind of just enjoying their lives, their existence on this planet, on this moon. It turns out that the planet is currently ruled by a dictator, and quote, a dictator to rival any on Earth, of Earth, with visions of subjugating the universe to his iron fist. And no idle dream is this, for he wields immense power. Well, you kind of think he's talking about Trump here. Apparently, he has a army of mercenaries. So basically, we're not introduced to Thanos at this point, but when we are, we find out that he's like the Stranger, in that he's a collector of like intergalactic malcontents. And apparently he has plans for Earth. He's going to use it as a stepping stone to conquer the universe. It says that he does have agents on Earth, and that his agents are being controlled by a disc that's placed on the back of the person's head. We see some darkened silhouettes. I can do spoilers here. It's Thanos, Death, and someone called the Controller. And the Controller has the power to do it. So Starlin was thinking, long term. Because I don't think the Controller shows up until issue 30. So he kind of had a lot of this saga kind of laid out already. And so Thanos has all these agents in the government, and that's how he was able to set up Captain Marvel, Rick Jones. Luann, is telling the story. Captain Marvel's kind of doesn't believe her, saying, how can you know about this? And Luann's saying that this person controls important people, and they control nobodies like me. And I'm going to show you how he controls us, because I'm going to pull out this ray gun and shoot you. Now, based on what Luann is saying, she doesn't really want to do this, so she's kind of doing this against her will. Rick Jones is seeing this from the negative zone. He's not listening to the story that she's talking. He's just focused on these actions, and Luann, like firing a gun, is just proving all that Jordan Peterson stuff that he so believes in. And he really wants Captain Marvel to go heavy on this woman. However, Captain Marvel actually was listening to her. And he's aware that she's not doing this on her own volition. Captain Marvel still belts her, though. So I mean, he did get a shot in for Rick there. But nevertheless, Luann doesn't look like she's like terribly hurt. Luann's obviously upset. She's explaining how the control works, in that it doesn't fully control a person's mind, but it can control certain aspects. So the person could, I guess it works on the urges, and they would create the urge to kill, and then she would have to act on it. But it's clear that it's not like fully. She's not fully under a spell or anything. So anyway, Luann is crying. She's bearing her soul. Captain Marvel's like thinking, Rick, really, do you need any more proof that this woman is not, maliciously doing these things? And, Rick Jones is kind of quiet. And he knows he was wrong. So then Captain Marvel says, maybe we should switch, and then maybe you, Rick Jones, the alleged girlfriend of this woman, maybe you can have better luck trying to understand what's going on. So they switch. And the two come together. So Rick Jones forgot all about that stuff he was saying in the negative zone. They are being watched. The two are being observed. They're being observed by 4 individuals. We know Thanos, Death, the Super Skrull, who is one of Thanos' agents, and another Skrull by the name of Scrag. It appears that Scrag was kind of a scientist on the Skrull world. And he was probably discredited and kind of driven out of that culture. And he just kind of threw in his lot with Thanos. It turns out that this is part of a plan. Thanos is kind of leery of Scrag because Scrag kind of screwed up the first time because that whole thing about taking Rick Jones into the police station was something that was designed to break him. Having him being accused of murder, having his own girlfriend turn on him, and then Captain Marvel having to deal with his old ghost from the past. And the idea was to mentally weaken these two. And it turned out it kind of did the opposite. Because not only did they both overcome what was planned by Scrag, they actually came out a little stronger. So Thanos, so this guy Scrag he has sort of a short rope with Thanos, and Thanos is reminding him of this. Scrag tries to kind of save himself with a lot of buck passing here, but Thanos is not hearing it. Thanos knows, hey, I know when someone's licking my boots, and you're licking my boots, at least verbally. However, the Super Skrull becomes more involved in this plan. And the Super Skrull is a little ticked off at the way Thanos is handling things, because he feels that he's too overly trusting of this kind of sneaky, underhanded scientist. And Super Skrull is more of a direct guy. He wants to directly confront his foes. So there's sort of that conflict going on. However, Super Skrull is a soldier, so he understands what his superior wants, and he can follow orders. And he knows that Thanos wants information more than victory, so he doesn't really care, quote unquote, who wins a battle. He just cares about what information he can get from it. We see Super Skrull. He's about to dive bomb on this individual dressed in a fedora and trench coat. No matter what you look like, you're always like, incognito when you're wearing those things in the Marvel Universe. There's not many people on this street, but this is a real looking street, because rather than having sort of all those perfectly straight lines that you would see in a DC comic, there are like cracks on the cement, there are tenements, so this gives it like kind of a more of a real feel, that there's a real battle going on here. The Super Skrull gets closer and closer. He's kind of enjoying this part of the plan. He sees the thing, and he throws a fireball at him. And it's a fireball that's designed more to annoy the thing than anything else, because it basically strips all his clothing off of him. So the thing is no longer incognito. He's also on fire a little bit, but he's made of rock, so it's fine. The Super Scroll and the Thing go face to face. They're kind of trading insults here. However, the Super Scroll really wants to tackle the Thing, but he knows he can't. So he gives the Thing the address to a particular building, 414 West 44th Street, and he says, "Meet me there if you dare." The Thing isn't fooled by this. He knows it's a trap, but he said his attitude is, "Hey, I'm stupid enough to fall for this. I really want this guy. I really dislike him." So then we go back to Luann's apartment. Luann is just trying to make sense of what's going on. Rick Jones wants to help her, particularly get rid of that disc that's kind of controlling her emotions. He has friends with the Avengers. He could see what they can do. I would think the Avengers would be able to help because the Controller is an old Iron Man enemy. So I figure Iron Man would probably know how to deal with those discs. Rick wants a little McLovin here. Okay. And then he leaves the apartment and he heads for the tenement that Luann told him about. So the idea here is to set up both Captain Marvel and the Thing together, because both of them are in this tenement, but neither knows that the other one is there or why the other one is there. So right now, Captain Marvel is letting Rick Jones take the lead. They're still communicating, saying that, hey, if things get bad enough, make the switch. So, again, kind of a dumpy apartment. One thing to remember is that in the 1970s, there were a ton of abandoned apartments. And it's something that's amazing now because there's nothing abandoned in terms of real estate in New York now. But in the 70s and in the 80s, you would just find these abandoned apartments all over the place. So this looks like one of them. And also, given that comic book artists weren't paid a whole lot, I'm sure Jim Starlin probably lived in a place not much different than what he's drawing. Okay, so then we see Thanos. We see Thanos and Scrag. So far, everything's working out well in terms of Scrag's plan. However, Thanos is letting him know, don't crow too soon, because you were doing that with your first plan, and that didn't work. So you don't get many chances with Thanos. He goes through his lackeys pretty quickly. So anyway, the Thing reaches the place. Rick Jones had gotten there first. We see the Thing. He breaks the door down, and then he encounters a mechanical device that looks like something that Reed Richards would create. And this is what he's saying out loud, because you remember the heroes think out loud. It's the villains who talk to themselves. And the weapon fires. The Thing does mention that it looks like an alien design, and then it took his voice away. So the Thing is kind of confused, because why go to the trouble of creating such a device, and a device that caught him, flat-footed, and all he does is lose his voice. So then we go back to the to Thanos' little headquarters. Super Skrull's very confused about this, and he's pissed off. So he's not confused. He's pissed confused. And he says, knocking out the Thing's voice will not do anything. However, Scrag insults the Super Skrull as kind of like this dummy who doesn't have the foresight to see anything. And what Scrag is counting on, was that in the last encounter, where they were going back and forth between Marvel's enemies, they want Rick Jones to think that's happening again. So when he does see the Thing, he's not thinking this is a member of the Fantastic Four who's here. They want them to think that, hey, this is a Skrull pretending he's the Thing. So anyway, Rick Jones, he sees the Thing. The Thing doesn't see him. They're both around the corner. Rick Jones is doing exactly what Scrag was counting on. He thinks this is one of the Skrulls. He clanks his wristbands together, and that's the thing that kind of switches Rick Jones and Captain Marvel from their respective realities. The Thing is looking, and suddenly, because the Thing notices the huge flash and the loud bang, and the Thing gets belted by Captain Marvel. And he kind of does this weird roundabout punch. And it looks good on paper here. I don't know, this would not work in real life. So anyway, Captain Marvel's pissed because he thinks this is a Skrull. And he's letting him know that, Luann's father, who's very dead, they didn't make believe they murdered him. They actually murked him. So Captain Marvel's pissed about that, and he says, listen, I'm going to get even with you. And he says there's a debt of blood to be paid and one of honor. So the Thing, he's kind of taken by surprise by this, because even though Captain Marvel is nowhere near as strong as the Thing, he could still pack a powerful punch. And the Thing did hear what Captain Marvel was saying about him being a Skrull. And because the Thing can't talk and whatnot, he knows he's at a disadvantage, because he knows that this guy thinks he's a Skrull. And he doesn't have a real good way of communicating that he isn't. Because obviously Captain Marvel's not going to give him the time to kind of write things out. The Thing, he returns the punch. Captain Marvel feels this. There's another good punch. I mean, he really batters Captain Marvel here. And not only that, it's like he's doing it against the wall. So Captain Marvel, he's feeling the force of the frontal punch, and he's feeling in the back too from the wall. You see Captain Marvel's kind of like he has some of the steam taken out of him, and his breath is kind of knocked out. He's impressed with the strength of the Skrull, though. And he admits that you're stronger than me, but he's saying because I was born a Creed soldier, nurtured in galactic combat. And the code of the Creed's first lesson is to never give up until victory is won. So he kind of grabs the Thing in this kind of, I guess, karate hold and throws him through a wall. Again, this is great art here. The Thing is beside himself because he realizes he's fighting a guy who is ideologically driven at this point. So there's kind of like no real negotiations with him, because Captain Marvel's kind of set these high standards. The Thing knows that this has to end sooner rather than later. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good outcome. But he's still bothered by his throat, so he can't talk. Scrag is reporting to Thanos that the temple is increasing, and that this is the thing that should drive Captain Marvel crazy when he finds out that he didn't kill a Skrull, that he actually killed the very innocent Thing. They feel like this is the event that will drive Captain Marvel to madness. It's a little strange, given that Captain Marvel was a soldier in a warlike society, and he rose to a fairly good rank there too. So I would have a hard time believing that Captain Marvel never, quote, killed an innocent, so to speak. and that all the deaths that he were involved in were just, military battles that, it was either his life or their lives. It's a little convenient. However, Thanos is still giving Scrag shit, saying that, dude, you're still a failure in my eyes. You're lucky I'm lazy, and I'm giving you this chance. And Thanos tends to be a little lazy at times. Okay, so going back to the battle, Captain Marvel, he's going straight forward right at the thing. See a very nicely drawn panel. Although Captain Marvel has like an 8-pack. He has these super ripped body here. Thing still can't speak. The thing whacks Captain Marvel. Again, doing that roundabout punch. Then the thing pulls the rug under Captain Marvel by grabbing the steel floor and kind of pulling the rug out from under him. And it looks like it's a success because part of the building just kind of smashes down on Captain Marvel. So the thing is sort of happy that he's incapacitated him. The thing is still trying to figure out how to communicate with Captain Marvel because he doesn't want to hurt Captain Marvel, and he's actually getting close to the debris that Marvel is buried under so he can help him, but at the same time he knows that he still can't talk and he still might be in trouble. Great panel here of Captain Marvel just coming out from all that ash and dust, kind of like a phoenix. And the thing is pretty impressed here. He knows he's in for a fight. He knows this guy has a lot of power. But it turns out that Captain Marvel has a plan. Every good soldier, he has a plan. And he grabs a piece of electrical wire. It's a pretty large piece. And he throws it at the thing. And he pronounces it 1,000 volts of death. The thing is totally taken out by this. This is a tremendous amount of power that the thing is being hit with. He's knocked unconscious. So at this point, Marvel won the battle. And he's standing victorious over it. The 4 Watchers, Thanos, Death, Super Skrull, and Scrag, they're watching the events unfolding. Scrag is the one who has the most invested because he knows he's finished if this doesn't work. So he's the main cheerleader, and he's the guy trying to frame this in the best possible light to Thanos. As we go back to the fight's not over as far as Captain Marvel's concerned. He's kind of out of it a little bit. Captain Marvel again has a plan. He's and he comes up with his revenge, talking about an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life. So he's taking this basically sharp spear that he created, and he's gonna basically ram it into the thing, or the scroll he believes is the thing. So Captain Marvel at this point, he's gonna murk this guy, and he's like, "Oh, this is something that was very unusual, not really seen from the heroes, because this is premeditated. I mean, there's a little bit of passion of the moment or crime of passion, but no, this was a little premeditated on his part. We see a very dramatic art sequence here of where it goes from Marvel to the Thing, to Marvel to the Thing. A lot of emphasis on eyes here. Jim Starlin drew great eyes. Even John Romita, when he was erasing all that Starlin artwork in Spider-Man, he mentioned that he enjoyed the eyes. So anyway, at this point, it's kind of a cliffhanger here on page 19. Because Captain Marvel went through it with it. And he drove his spear it was a clean follow through. However, it turns out that he did not actually hit his opponent, and Captain Marvel could not do this because even he recognized that the person I would have to be, I don't want to be that person if this is the way it's handled. I think Marvel he's okay with killing people, but it has to be like in self-defense and stuff. And he says that killing this Skrull would make him morally on par with him. And he says, you know what? I'm too good for that. You know, you guys are the monsters. You guys are the scumbags. I'm the good guy. So I'm not going to sully myself by doing something that you would do. And, you know, Marvel's letting it be known that he does not like this guy. But the thing was, the shock of the electricity, it reversed the effects of the ray that took the Thing's voice away. So now the Thing can talk. And suddenly he's clearing things up for Captain Marvel, probably letting him know, hey, I encountered Super Skrull on 42nd Street, and I don't have to talk about why I was there, but nevertheless, you know, he led me to this place and so forth. Okay, so the plan has completely failed. And again, it was deja vu from the previous episode, because now Captain Marvel's, he's empowered at this point. He took a gamble on a moral choice. He gambled right. So Captain Marvel, he just feels himself, he's probably, if nothing else, a stronger person now, because he took such a big gamble and he was right. However, Thanos doesn't look at it this way. He says, I need information from this guy, and I need this guy like kind of crazy to get this information, and you didn't do that, and now you're going to make it harder for me in the future. So this is what Thanos is really angry about. His lazy ass is going to have to work. And he makes it clear that Scrag is going to get his final payment of what he, I guess, what his competence earned him. So Scrag realizes what's happening. He's begging for his life. It's not going to do any good. And then suddenly, Captain Marvel and the Thing, they hear a loud, kind of unique sounding scream. The Thing isn't used to this, but Captain Marvel recognizes this, and he recognizes it as kind of the Skrull death cry. It's kind of the Klingons have the same thing too. And since Captain Marvel was in battle with the Skrulls a lot, yeah, he recognizes this. I guess his other comrades are doing the wanton killing, and Marvel's kind of like hanging around in the back, making sure that his killings were like, you know, completely covered. Hey, it was self-defense. So anyway, there is one art thing that looks really weird. In this panel on page 22, Captain Marvel looks like a 60-year-old. So, yeah, I don't know what happened. I think Cockrum and Starlin, Cockrum did the inks. I think two complement each other very well here. But yeah, that panel didn't come out right. So they go and they investigate the scream. They find a large steel door. Thing yells, "It's clobbering time." He smashes through the door, and it appears to be a lab to them. They're not sure, but as they head in, they noticed a scroll that had been changed to stone. So this is Scrag's final fate. He ended up being a statue of when he was whining and begging. So, I mean, that's like a double humiliation there. They don't understand this, who did this. However, the person who was responsible for this, he shows up. And then we see the introduction, I guess the real introduction of Thanos in the Marvel Universe is made right here. So this really should have been the introduction, not that Iron Man number 55. But nevertheless, it doesn't matter. We see a first real look at Thanos. I believe Starlin was pretty upfront when he admitted that he originally based Thanos on a characters that Jack Kirby was creating at DC, the New Gods. But the one that Starlin had chose to basically kind of crap or copy was actually Meteoron, who's kind of like this kind of thinnish, bookish figure. But I think some of his colleagues at Marvel, who were really kind of rooting Starlin on, were saying, no. If you're going to steal one of those characters, steal the really good one. And that's Darkseid. That's the really good one. So, Starlin basically, I don't want to say copy because there are differences between the two characters, but he used Darkseid as kind of the template for what Thanos was going to be. And we see the Super Skrull here. He's significantly smaller than Thanos. And then we see what we'll learn is the Avatar of Death, the female Avatar of Death, because in Ghost Rider 35 that I did a review on, I'm a little buzzed. Death used a male avatar, so that's kind of strange. And Thanos has this romantic relationship with this avatar too, and that's weirdness they didn't get into. Thanos is saying that basically he has these huge intergalactic plans. And I command a large army of misfits and malcontents, and like basically your days of quote freedom and autonomy are over. And they do mention here that Thanos did change a little from his first appearance in Iron Man 55. Remember, that's the art that Stan Lee hated. And almost wanted Jim Starlin fired because of that. So again, they're just they're doing what's right. You make changes, course corrections if something's not working. So anyway, going back to the story, the Thing rushes in, and he's gonna greet Thanos. He's not afraid of big muscular guys. Captain Marvel's also ready there, right behind him. Thanos kind of just basically waves his hand, and the power blast is so strong that it sends the Thing backward. He's like really creamed here. I will say that this one panel looks a lot like how Steve Ditko would draw it. We see Captain Marvel. He's looking at the Thing. It's a really weird layout because it looks like the Thing is sitting up, leaning against the wall with his mouth opened. And it just seems strange that Captain Marvel's like looking at him there. He's not looking at his opponent, which, that's soldiers are taught to look at their opponents. However, it probably won't do any good. Thanos is activating his power. You see, he would have his eye beams along with his hand blast. And then suddenly there's this crackling of energy, and we see Captain Marvel very confused about a transformation that's happening. And suddenly the transformation is complete, and we see Rick Jones there. So what Captain Marvel and Rick Jones would do with their Creed bands, Thanos was able to do this, activating some power of his. Both of them are very surprised. Rick Jones is saying no one's ever done that before. There's also a big surprise here to the readers, kind of a little bit of a curveball, saying that Thanos really wasn't looking for Captain Marvel. It was Rick Jones he wanted. And then Super Skrull grabs Rick Jones, since Captain Marvel won't be a problem at this point. And we see that Thanos transports himself, Death, the Super Skrull, obviously Rick Jones, and the statue of Skrug. The failure that he was so mad at that he turned him into stone, he took that with him. My guess is that he's going to parade that statue to his army of malcontents, just letting them know what will happen to them if they don't meet his expectations. So one person that was not transported was the Thing. At this point, Thanos had no interest in the Thing. The Thing notices that everyone's gone. He says even most of the lab seems to be gone. He has no way to follow up on this. He's obviously concerned about Rick Jones, and he's concerned about Marvel. He's mentioning Captain Marvel. He may not know about the link between him and Jones. Nevertheless, he does feel bad, but he also knows that he kind of has to cut ties here, because there's just simply no way for him to figure out what's going on. And we're told a couple of things in this last page. One is that the Thing will have his own comic book, and that's Marvel 2-in-1. I bought actually a lot of Marvel 2-in-1. Marvel 2-in-1 was a comic book that kids who liked the Thing but disliked the Fantastic Four, and I knew some kids like that, they would buy Marvel 2-in-1. That was actually a good comic book, and it lasted like 10 years. And the second thing we're going to learn is that in the next issue, it's going to be Return of the Titans. Issue number 27 was a better issue than this. I think issue 27 was the best single issue of all 8 of them. I thought the art was great. I thought the drama was great. I thought the characters were great. It almost seemed like a movie. So issue 27, that one is definitely worth watching. I also thought it had the best cover of the series. Okay, so I'm going to take a look. The issue that I'm looking at didn't have the Marvel Bulletin, so I can't review that. This is a membership to VOOM, Friends of Old Marvel. I think you would. I know an older cousin who did this, and it was so cool. All the stuff he got back. It was really that poster that was by Jim Steranko that was amazing. And it gives you an idea of what you're getting. Meanwhile, the weird thing is that the cost of this membership is only $2.50, which for a kid buying, say, 20-cent comic books, that might be a lot, but most kids can probably make that, that one-time investment, to get the $2.50 money order, and they probably spend 50 cents on the stamp and envelope. So, nevertheless, I do have that poster at home. And I'm going to look at the letters page. And it's called Mail It to Marvel. And one person was saying is that they're not happy with the art team at the time. They're talking, I think the writers here, they're talking about issue number 22 and 23. And Starlin took over in issue 25. So these guys didn't have any idea of what was going to happen. and and yeah, the first person is kind of he has kind of a downer letter. He's not talking about the issue in particular. He's talking about the direction of the comic. Doesn't really like the artist they brought in, Wayne Boring. Wayne Boring was really known in the 50s as a Superman artist. He was still doing work for Marvel into the 80s, the late 80s. He was actually doing a war comic for them, Nam. But Wayne was, his style was kind of like dated at this point. Okay, so the next letter, talking about issue number 23, he's saying that it wasn't a bad comic, but the villain wasn't anything special. He's also suggesting changing the art team. The first letter suggested that too. They're talking about Gene Colan taking over. No, that would not have worked. Gene Colan, yeah, I remember I never liked the Avengers run where Gene Colan was the primary artist for a while. I like this style. He does great work with Tomb of Dracula, with Namor, with Daredevil, things that are very shadowy. But yeah, he would not have done well with a science fiction book. The next letter is basically this is basically it seems like they answered his specific concerns when they brought in Jim Starlin, because he's saying that Captain Marvel, it's not going in the right direction. He's saying that you guys just basically brought Captain Marvel back because the title was dormant for a while, and you're just going to end up canceling him again. He's saying that Captain Marvel should be Marvel's intergalactic hero. So whenever there's anything involving something that involves outside of Earth, Captain Marvel should be one of the big players involved. So he's saying that he doesn't care for Wayne Boring's art. Again, Wayne Boring, he had an old-fashioned style at this time. He's suggesting Gil Kane or Sal Buscema. Yeah, they would punch up the art, but they wouldn't really help with the storytelling. Same way, Mark from Ohio, they do answer him back saying that basically your prayers have been answered. We got this kid, Jim Starlin, and he's going to give you everything you want. And I bet I have Mark here, he probably got more than he thought, because wow, this epic by Starlin. I mean, basically, you can almost say that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is based on it. Okay, so that's it for the letters. Then we have one in-house ad. It's for War of the Worlds. This is a new hero. This is Killraven. I read a few of the Killraven comics. I was fine with them. I had no problem with them, but I never really got caught up in his universe, because again, it was one of these alternative universe titles, and I never really cared for them. I think eventually Bill Mantlo, when he was doing Marvel Team Up, he found a way to chronologically tie in Killraven and Deathlock into the Marvel Universe proper. Although, poor Bill, he wasn't always coherent with his ideas, because I remember there was some batshit crazy stuff with that Marvel Team Up run. So we see our hero. He's wearing disco boots. He kind of has the futuristic bouncer look. In certain bars, this would be an acceptable way of dressing. He has a headband. You know, he has his sword and he has his gun. So if he wants to kill you from a distance or he wants to kill you close up, he's set. So anyway, I think this was a Neil Adams issue. So yeah, I think I like the art in it. So anyway, that's it. And this is my review of Captain Marvel 26, and I hope to have more up soon. Bye.